Welcome to the Coffee with Creators podcast, a casual conversation with creators about life and experiences. I'm your friend and your host, Michael. Back on the podcast is our friend Jordyn. Jordyn is a videographer, photographer, and designer who by far is the most genuine person I've ever come across. I believe that aside from her skills and commitment to her craft, her sincerity and authentic nature is part of the reason she has found so much growth and success. She's been very busy since we last spoke, and she's just getting started. Yeah, so I've been having a lot of internet trouble lately as of like the last 2 weeks, I would say. I reset my routers and everything, and it just doesn't seem to work. And then just like, one thing happened after another, like today. I apologize so much. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no worries at all.
Yeah, I had to get my daughter. And sure enough, in that school, for some reason, there's no signal. And I'm like checking emails, checking my phone, can't do anything. I had to bike back. So that's why I'm 15 minutes late. I'm so glad you sent me that email because I'm like, wait, hang on. I'm running. You don't see it right now, but I'm sweating. So sorry, Jordyn. Sorry
You are
for
totally
that.
fine. This is the life.
Okay.
I mean, I'm on the other end trying to figure out my camera, plugging into my computer and failing on that. So it's just how it goes.
So what
right?
happened? What happened? Do you need a special cable for it?
Yeah, I got the brand new MacBook finally after waiting months. It came yesterday. I was waiting and waiting and waiting, and I had like my connections. I know that seems silly, but just the way that I gave away all of my dongle type stuff to the person that I sold my computer to, because I figured I wouldn't need that specific orientation of them, and now I don't have the cables I need. So, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm glad you have your new computer. I was slightly tempted when you said maybe we should reschedule. But here's the thing that I've I found out about myself. If there's something that I set out to do, I find myself easily swayed to just take the easy way out, right? It's like,
Yeah.
you know what? Yeah, maybe we'll just reschedule or something. And I've done this all my life. And so, like in the last few years, I've noticed that I've had this kind of change in my perspective that I feel that you have to sometimes fight for something, like no matter how small it is. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, there's a little bit of struggle there. It doesn't mean that you need to back away. It just means maybe it's teaching you something. It's teaching you to work through this problem, right? And so that was one of the reasons why I'm like, you know what, we are a little bit late, and it's my fault. But I'm like, I'm just gonna try to see if we can still salvage this. But I'm glad you're still available, Jordyn. I know you've been very busy. It takes a while for us to actually, like when we're messaging each other on Instagram. It takes a couple of days for both of us to get back to each other because it's like we're both like juggling between different projects and stuff. But I'm so glad to have you back on the podcast. The last time you were here was last year. And that's a while back, actually. Like
Yeah.
maybe not a year ago, but
Yeah.
last year. And so, can you bring us up to speed, Jordyn? Like, what's the last time we spoke? You were still doing freelance videography, and I know I followed you because you don't post a lot on your feed, but you share a lot in your stories. And I see that you've been very busy. You've been working with a couple of, let's just say it looks like very interesting projects. So can you bring me up to speed? Like what's going on with you and how are you doing?
Yeah. So last time we chatted, I think that I had said, okay, I'm going to try to put down the freelance work and focus more on the YouTube space. And you've seen how that's gone. I've still been on the YouTube space. I've been on Instagram intermittently, but I had a crazy year of freelance work last year. So I'm very thankful for that. But I just project after project after project, and I was definitely still learning how to say no, still learning which jobs I wanted to take on, and all of that in between. But yeah, I've been doing so many different types of projects. I got to work on a coffee commercial, which that is when I actually did post on YouTube the behind the scenes of that. But I did that project all by myself. in 24 hours, and it's one of the ones that I've done most recently that I'm most proud of. And yeah, it's just been a crazy freelance journey. And now I'm back talking to you again a year later, still saying, okay, I think I'm going to settle down on the freelance work and focus more on the YouTube space. And I'm still here trying to do that, but it's hard, you know, because the freelance work is what brings in the money,
Yes.
so that I can actually support myself. But it's the YouTube space that brings out the true creativity that I want to share with the world. So it's like, where's the balance? It's very difficult to figure out for
So
sure.
right, so you're still figuring it out. You're still trying to see
Mm-hmm.
where you're finding time for the YouTube, for the more of your creative outlet, because I understand this, like when you're working as a freelancer, you're mostly at the creative mercy of someone else, right? Like it's like this is
Mm-hmm.
their vision, this is what they want, and you have the technical know-how to actually make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get that. I get that feeling where it's like I am creating something, but I want to create something for me. And so I guess you're
Yeah.
still on that journey. But one of the reasons that I'm so excited to have you on today is because you shared with me just a few months, not maybe months, but weeks. Actually, it probably
Mm-hmm.
has been a month. You said that you've increased your income since we last chatted, and it's something that I've been so interested to hear about. Like, what did you do something drastically different? What changed that made you be a lot more successful than you are right now than you were um, last year?
Hmm. Well, to answer that specific question, I would say just that I kept doing it. I honestly think that I didn't change anything except that I just continue to create more work. And so, yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, 2020 was the start of the pandemic, so of course that is a very interesting year for all of us. But then in 2021, what I had told you is I actually tripled my income, which is pretty wild.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm very thankful for that too, because I had some pretty big expenses this past year, and at times I didn't know how I was going to do it. And then just a huge blessing. All of a sudden, I was able to. And so that was definitely a huge blessing. But yeah, I wouldn't say that I specifically changed anything. It's just that it's kind of like a domino effect. The more people you work with, the more word of mouth and the more networking that starts to build, right? And so I think that is kind of just where I landed, and that's a very um, special place to be, because I have a lot of people ask me, how do you find more client work? And what I tell them is just kind of let your community know that you're available, and that's what has been the most beneficial thing for me, because people just continue to recommend me to other people, and that's how I get the majority of my work. Actually, I don't really need to do cold calls and stuff, so nothing has technically changed except that I've continued to work for people, and then they've continued to recommend me and recommend me to others, and I've just taken the opportunities that were worth it and good. And I've learned better too how to price myself and how to decide what I want to actually go out for. Uh, Trust me, not doing that perfectly, still taking some really low jobs, because they're really interesting to me. And sometimes there's just a give and take of that, right?
Yes.
So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. Actually,
mm-hmm,
you said a lot of really good and important things that a lot of people don't realize, and that's the fact that when you said that you need to make yourself available, that's so true. Um,
mm-hmm,
Being creatives, I think we always suffer from the same negative thoughts that say we're not good enough. No one's going to hire me. Someone else is better than me. And what we usually do is we just sit back and slowly put stuff out there, but not really make ourselves available. So it's like we're ready to
mm-hmm,
share all the amazing work that we create. We're willing to share the portfolio, but we're not willing to say, "Hey, I'm looking for work," or "I'm ready to, I can provide you this service." And that was just an
mm-hmm,
interesting, I guess, way of putting it, because it's true. And I think by doing that, you might be surprised at how it really is like the floodgates suddenly opened. You know what I mean? Because
mm-hmm,
in my experience, you will be surprised at how many people are looking for people that can, like people that have the skills that you have. So let's try. I want to try to understand, like, is there a moment in your career in the last year or so where you're like, you know what, this is maybe I should put myself out there more. Maybe I should make myself available more, or have you always made yourself available? Like, what was your steps? What steps did you take? Did you? I know you said you didn't make cold calls or anything like that. Was it just when you meet someone and you ask them about their business, and you ask them if they need anything? How do you generate this type of interest in your work?
Yeah, I'm very thankful that I think the way that I've always gone about it is a very natural way, and that's what I prefer, but it can work really well. So there's ways to do it naturally that is still, quote, marketing yourself, but I don't ever think of it in the sense of marketing myself, right? And so here's how I'll give you like three different situations of how this usually happens. The first is I'll meet someone new. I'm with my friends while I'm meeting someone new. And the typical question that almost everybody gets is, what do you do? What do you do for a living? And so I say, well, I'm a freelance videographer, and that's all that I say. And then I have some good friends around me. I haven't asked them to do this, but you could ask your friends to do this. But I have a lot of friends that usually say, oh no, she's more than just a videographer. Like, you should see her work, and then they talk me up, which is really, really, really kind. This doesn't
Mm-hmm.
always happen, but this situation happens more than you would think. And then people get really interested, and they're like, okay, what kind of videos do you like to make? And then that allows me the opportunity to share more of the types of videos, which I actually don't have a very clear answer for because I make a lot of different types of videos.
Yeah.
And I think that opens up even their minds to like, oh, that's a sense availability for them of like, oh, I know someone who needs this, or I wonder if I need that for my job, or like my company could really benefit from that. So that is one way that I get a lot of clients actually. Another way, this is a little less organic, but I filmed a lot of footage this year, and I put a little reel together, and I had that just up on YouTube. That's not necessarily going to bring you traffic locally, so I had never used the Nextdoor app in my life. The Nextdoor app is like where it just is your community. It sets you up within the neighbors around you. And I posted on there, said, hey, I've never used this before, but I've taken a lot of good footage from around my area if you guys want to take a look at it. And sure enough, from there, I had people message me and say, whoa, you do such great work. I actually really want a video made. I'm in the area. Would you like to meet up? And so that's another way. And I wasn't asking for any work in that. I was simply just sharing my work. So that's two ways. I guess I didn't really have the three in my mind when I told you three, but like other ways are simply just I make sure, like, when I first, the very first thing that I did when I left my job was I emailed people that I knew. I didn't email, like, companies to cold call and say, can I make a video for you? I emailed people that I knew and just said, hey, I just want to let you know I've made the step to go on my own. I now am available, so if there's anyone you know, or if you need anything, I'm here and I'm available. So those are the types of things and the ways I've gone about it, rather than I haven't posted ads of myself, I haven't made videos or made a video for a company. This is still a good way to go, but I haven't made like the spec work as much and sent them off to a company. But on the side, I've also created my own content that people have seen, and out of that, just creating for, I guess, myself, essentially, people have also asked me to do some work. So it's all been very natural and organic, and I'm very thankful for that, for sure.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. I think one of the reasons people are drawn to that type of like of presenting yourself is because A, for like you said, it's very natural, and B, it's just
Mm-hmm.
it's more approachable. It's not like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
this is, you know what I mean? Like, if I'm trying to imagine someone's, like, I remember looking someone up, and someone told me, hey, you should reach out to this guy because he's really good with whatever it is that he was doing. And I looked him up, and he had such an amazing reel. It was a little intimidating, you know what I mean, for me to say,
Mm-hmm.
well, do I really want to contact this guy? What if he's super expensive? What if he's super busy? And so all these things are happening in my head, and so that made me hesitate. But for you, it really is just like, hey, I have work, and that's an invitation. And I mean, I have work
Mm-hmm.
published somewhere. I mean, it's on the app, it's on the Google Drive, whatever it is. You guys can check it out. And people, they don't have anything to lose. They're just like, oh, let me just see.
Mhm.
And I think it just works from there. And I love that style. Actually, what you also did with the email, I can't remember exactly who I was talking to. I've talked to so many people in the last month or so that I can't even remember. Like, it's starting to mesh together, my memory. But
Mhm.
I mentioned to them that when I left my job, actually the week that I got laid off from my last job, prior to becoming a freelancer, I wanted to send an email to people, but I did something a little bit different, and it's very similar to what you did. But so what I did was, oh, my observation first is I've worked in that company for about 4 years, 3 or 4 years, I can't remember exactly, but every time someone leaves, they would send a mass email, and they would just say, thank you for being a good, for being good to me, blah, 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 blah. Um, I've been in the company for the last 10 or 15 years. I've seen the company grow. And there's two things that I noticed in those type of emails. And one is that most of them, not all of them, but most of them almost like they sound like they're just building themselves up so that they could have a
Mhm.
graceful exit, which is weird. You know what I mean? It's like I've done so much for the company, but I have to say bye. And that's kind of like the
Mhm.
step. The second is I just don't care. I don't care about these people because it's to them, they all feel like they're in their own personal stage and they're looking down on everyone else and just saying, bye guys, I hope you guys, I wish you guys good luck, which is all well and good. But at the end of the day, like I said, I don't care. So when it was my time to leave, what I did was instead of sending a mass email to like a group of people, I actually spent the entire day typing out individual emails to individual people, and I would tailor it to them. I didn't have to be
Mhm.
over dramatic about anything, but I wanted them to know that I remember them specifically. So, for example, I sent this guy, Eric, an email and I said, hey, Eric, just wanted to say that, or just wanted to give you a heads up that today or this week is going to be my last week. I'm moving on with my career. And I just wanted to say that I really appreciated the efforts that or when you took me out to lunch on my first day and showed me where to go eat. And I thought that was very nice, and I would never forget that. And if you need anything, here's my number, here's my email. And literally just like that, as simple as that. Just I would try to connect that person to a specific memory to let them know that they matter, that I remember them. And sure enough, that really helped me in my freelance career. This is before the pandemic, when I was kind of in the
Mhm.
similar situation as you, Jordyn, where it's like I was making enough money and then I got laid off. And for about a month or two, I was like suffering because obviously I didn't have money. But very quickly after that, I basically tripled my income as well. And it's all through
Mhm.
networking. And so I think it's a really interesting topic that I mean, we didn't really plan this, right? This topic wasn't really planned, but it's very crucial, I think, for people, for creative people, for people in the creative industry to learn how to network, and not necessarily just to have a really nice portfolio or a reel or a you know what I mean. It's like it's not that
Yeah.
anymore. Yeah, it's not that anymore. I think it's
Yeah.
more about making the connections.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, I've talked to a lot of people who are extremely great creatives, you know? And I'm like, and they're like, I can't find clients. I can't find clients. And I'm doing all these things. And to be honest, like, I've heard, I've listened, I've watched to all of the, here's your 10 steps to be the best business person you can be. And I don't ever want to give that message across because it's like this 10 steps towards success, but what's the definition of that success? I don't know. um and this, I can get really deep into this, but um
Let's do it.
i I just I just think that being who you are, and being natural and who you are, and just living out your actual life and being genuine with people and serving people well, Like that's what's gonna take you further, and that's what's gonna actually satisfy you even more than just I followed this 5 steps, I paid this much dollars for my advertising, and I landed a client that didn't care about me, and I just made the money. So I understand that might work for some people, but just where I'm at, that's not kind of the direction that I would want to head. I want to head into relationships that maybe people do have smaller budgets, but we built this long-lasting relationship that that branches the networking into tons of other people who really care and who really want to work with me because they like me as a person and they like my work, you know? And I like to work for them and serve them the best that I can. And so I often tell people, like, especially really creative people, I'm like, let your people know, you know? Like, let the people around you know that you're struggling to find clients, and like their network is huge. Don't just think about only your network, and this will just keep branching out. Anyway, yeah, I could kind of get lost in all of my
That's
thoughts
okay.
about this, but
No, that's okay. I appreciate that because I think it's a real thing.
yeah.
I think it's a real struggle for a lot of people, not necessarily just creatives, but just people who are or like freelancers, for example, for entrepreneurs, and all these people who are trying to make a living outside of the usual 9 to 5 job. And I think it's very important for people to learn this because this wasn't really taught in thing. And usually when you don't know anything, you look on YouTube or Google, and that's where you see the things that you just mentioned, like the 5 steps that you should follow. It's all well and good, because these can be good practices, I think, but they're not.
Yeah.
I mean, they're techniques, right? They're different techniques, but they're not necessarily the rule that you have to follow. Because the problem I have, and I think this is why I've always felt this, Jordyn, that you and I get along in this. I mean, not we do get along, but like we both agree in this very personal, organic type of relationship with people and with work, because I don't want to see my clients as numbers. You know what I mean? It's like they're people to me, and I am trying to help them grow, because if I'm just thinking of the number of the paycheck, no matter how small or big it is, it's like for example this, like I recently worked with someone who needed a logo designed. I'm like, okay, yeah. So they're like, how much would it cost? And I know this guy has a small business just starting out, just charged him really cheap, but it doesn't end there. It's not like, okay, I just charged this guy, this amount, and since that's all he could afford, that's all I'm gonna render him, and I'll just leave him off and see, let him fend off for himself. But no, I mean, I'll try my best to follow up and say, so how'd it go? What did you think? Do you need anything that will help you with your, I'm literally trying to get his business off the ground, because, like you said, when you help someone, people succeed. Like what you said basically is when you help someone, your network will just continue to grow, right? It'll just keep growing. It will keep growing. And to me personally, and you probably learned this already, but I've also noticed that beyond talent and skill, the one thing that clients really want, and the reason why they keep coming back to me, for example, is they know they can depend on me. And that building that trust, that dependability, is very crucial, because they don't really care how good you are. What they care is, can you do the work, and will you do the work when they need it? And so, me too, Jordyn. I can get into this whole thing. Like, this podcast is going to be 4 hours long. But
Exactly.
that's great, though. I'm glad that I'm hearing that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not trying to shoot down like the 5-step process. I think people are out there trying to help people the best they can, Yeah, I'm just saying that, like, it's if you only are trying to follow step by step by step to find the client, you did all the right things. It's just not always going to take you to where you want to go, and I think people just get really frustrated in that space. And so that's what I mean by that. Like, I just, your identity is not found in I did all the right steps and I got the big paycheck, and yay, like, it happened. Or I did all the right steps and I didn't get the big paycheck, and that's a really disappointing place to be, But rather, I met with people, I learned, I went through the trenches, I showed them the real me, the vulnerable me. I made mistakes on the job. I didn't budget myself correctly. I learned this time. Next time I can do this, and just kind of being willing to kind of throw yourself out there and not trying to perfect the process and do the best top 10 things you can do to get climb the ladder of corporate success. I just threw corporate in there. I just meant climb the ladder of success that the world defines. Yeah, that's just kind of my point, and all of that is I just want to see other creatives and encourage them and say, like, you're doing great. Your work is good. Now believe in yourself and don't feel like you have to be doing what those 5 steps and somebody else is doing. Like, your path will look different because you are unique and you're different and you're going to relate to people differently than I do. And yeah, so that's kind of my whole point in all of that.
Yeah, those who are listening right now, I'm going to try to paint this picture in your head. The first time I met Jordyn was more than a year ago, I think, when Chelsea and I were doing the podcast, and we had, and then I remember Jordyn very specifically because to me, Jordyn back then was just this very innocent and just like very timid. And I mean this in the best way, right? Like the very timid, creative, who knew that she could do something. She knew that she could create some stuff, but I didn't see this confidence back then. And I just wanted to point this out. Like, I want to commend you for the growth that you've experienced in the last year or so, and not just financial. I'm talking about like as a person. Like, hearing you speak right now, Jordyn, hearing you share these things, it's very different in a good way than from when we last spoke, because it's like you know exactly what you're doing. You've found your method, right? It's not the method that everyone should follow. It can be applied to other people, you know, if they wanted to try it. And I like that. I like that style too, like very organic, just putting yourself out there. And it's just amazing. I think I just wanted to say that, like, that it's nice to see you grow, and I'm super happy because it's, you know, we barely talk, but I follow you. I check out your work. I check out your stories. I'm not all of them, but it's like, it's amazing. It's just amazing how much has changed. Like, I never would have thought that in a year's time I'll be having this conversation. It's like, oh, this is really cool. So here's one thing that I do want to ask. You mentioned earlier that there are some instances where you realize that you didn't budget yourself correctly. Can you maybe give an example or a story or a situation where that was like the hard lesson, and maybe something that other creatives can hopefully avoid just by hearing your story?
Well, first I just want to say thank you. Thank you for all those kind words. And I for sure do not have it all figured out, but I'm getting better. But thank you. Yeah, so a hard budget situation. That's what you asked, right?
Yes.
A difficult situation with budget. Okay. So let's see. There's been so many. There's been projects that I've gone on that I'm like, oh man, I feel like I'm doing so much work and I don't know how I'm going to navigate this, or I don't know, so many questions. But in the end, I can tell you that I haven't actually regretted anything that I've done, because whether or not I got the paycheck I wanted or whether or not I learned the lesson that I needed, it was all worth it. So I wouldn't say that I've necessarily reflected on anything and said, dang it, like that was a terrible situation. I've actually been able to prepare myself for even so the coffee commercial that is posted on my YouTube channel, the behind the scenes, that was a lot of work for that coffee commercial. And the budget was fine. It's probably better than some people would say, but I'd say the budget was super, super low for what it should have cost. Okay. I'm bringing like $8,000 in my hand to that project. And I know that's like an investment and stuff, but it didn't quite equate to what I actually got paid and the amount of hours I spent on that project. And yet it was one of my favorite projects that I've worked on. It was one of my favorite, products to show other people. It's got so much value to it for me that I can look back on and say, wow, I just really had so much fun doing that. That the money for it wasn't wasn't the biggest factor in that. Even though if I wanted to, I could sit back and reflect and say, I really could have done a little bit better on that one.
When we come back, Jordyn talks about finding value in your own work and her plans to grow as a creator. Stick around. I would say that the backbone of just about every work from home setup is the desk. And while there are many out there, only one has enabled me to be healthier, more productive, and ultimately thrive in my own home office environment. And I'm talking about my very own electronic height adjustable sway desk by Ergonoffice. Ergonoffice offer a range of office furniture and accessories designed with the same care and attention to detail as my beloved sway desk. All of their products are sourced and handmade in Canada with the highest standards of quality. Check out their website at ergonoffice.com. That's ERGONOFIS.com. And for the Coffee with Creators listeners, you can use the code Michael50, that's MICHAEL 50 at checkout to save $50 on any of their desks.
And I say that to give more context. I had worked on a project for that client in the past, somewhat, not the same exact client. We don't have to get into the details, but let's just say it's like the same people that I worked with. And the previous project I did for them, I thought I did a lot better with the budget, because kind of where I went on that is I went out there for my price that I was really comfortable with. I was filming everything. Everything took a lot longer than it needed to. The final result wasn't going to be something that I was super happy to give to them. And I let them know that on set. I said, look, this has taken too much time. We haven't gotten everything we needed. I can run with this. I can make it the best that I can with this. Or we can schedule another day for me to come out here. It will increase the budget though. And I was able to have the confidence in that conversation, like live while I'm filming on the project, to say, this is something that I think is going to actually really benefit you, and I think will bring you a lot of value. I'm not just suggesting this for no reason. And sure enough, that project kind of doubled in budget because of that. And so that really paid off. Next time I worked with them, it was, I quoted them at what I thought it would take me, and they said, we can't do that. We have to cut off at this hard mark, but we want to do this project. That's where I weigh, okay, I should make a lot more for this one, especially now that they know how much work I'm going to give to them. And yet I was like, but the value that it's going to provide me and the fun that I'm going to have on this project, it's worth it. So I think there's a lot of give and take. And you just got to know what you feel comfortable with. And if you're at a point where you hear that, they say, we have a hard cutoff on our budget, and you're like, dang it, and you can't see the value it's going to bring you, that's when you learn the hard lesson and you say, okay, I'm sorry, I'm not the right person for you for this one. And I've had to learn that kind of stuff as well. That's hard. I actually had a very high budget project that was going to be so boring, just so boring, and take so much of my time. But it was like, I would have got paid for the easiest work ever, like a really high budget. And I said no to that one, actually. And I'm like, this would have been, to this point, the easiest work I could have ever done for the highest amount. And yet that's the one that I said no to. Doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, right? But it made sense to me because I got to focus on the things that I really wanted to focus on. And now because of the time that I've had, I've been able to open up mentorship opportunities that I've really wanted to do online and meet with people one-on-one. I've been able to do that kind of stuff. That has not made me at all the money I would have made on that project, but it's brought me so much more joy. And so when I talk about like this definition of success too, like if success is defined by the amount of money in your bank account, then that's a different story. But for me, that's just not where I ride. And I'm so thankful that I said no to those types of things, and now I'm here where I'm at. So
what a wonderful story. Yeah, I love that. I can totally relate, not to the fact that like people are paying me a lot of money to do nothing, but it's like your what you just said about it's interesting, and I love doing this. And I was going to ask you, like, what about it makes it so enjoyable that you're willing to forego like bigger projects for something that pays a lot less but enjoyable? And then I thought about myself, because one of the last few people that I spoke to, I jokingly said, this is something I do all the time, podcasting, and this is the one thing that I'm not getting paid for. And I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know why I love doing this. It's just, it's my way of connecting with people. And when Chelsea and I started this, it was really a selfish reason of, Michael's feeling lonely. I need to talk to people because I've been working from home for 3 years now. This was before the pandemic. And I'm like, I want to socialize. And so that this podcasting thing, I'm not the best at it. I haven't figured everything out, but I know I enjoy it. And it's not paying me. No, not at all. Like my wife would ask me, so what are you doing tomorrow? I'm like, oh, I have a whole day of editing, and then I'm podcasting, and then the next day I'm podcasting, and then the next day I'm podcasting. And I'm like, those 3 days that I'm podcasting, I'm not getting paid. And that's just the recording. That's just sitting down. That's not even editing. So editing, as a matter of fact, I've asked someone to edit some of the stuff for me, and I'm also paying someone to write like some parts of like the show notes and stuff to get me some links, and just trying to make it a little bit easier for me to create each episode. So in a way, I'm not only am I not getting paid, I'm actually actually losing money doing this. But to
Mm-hmm.
your point earlier, I see the value in it. There's value there with the things that I'm doing. I enjoy this. I feel like coffee and creators has given a voice um, to people that they want to share their life experiences, their views, their struggles, and if I can be that vehicle for them, I think that's great, because I feel like at the end of
Mm-hmm.
all of this, somehow, somewhere, someone will hear their message through this platform, and they'll be like, I can relate to that person. I don't feel alone anymore. And I think maybe maybe
Mm-hmm.
in the back of my head, that's really what drives me, why I like doing this. And so I totally get it. Like, so maybe people are wondering, why did Jordyn turn down that big project? Well, I kind of get it. I kind of get why she did, because maybe this is why I do this. I mean, I could definitely be doing something else right now and make money, but
Yeah.
no, I love doing this. That's why Jordan's like, maybe we can reschedule. Like, no, no, no. I want to do this. I want a podcast. So, no, that's great. I really appreciate it. Let me ask you this, Jordyn. What is it about this commercial that you love so much? Why do you love working with this coffee commercial that you said your favorite? What makes it your favorite?
Hmm. Yeah, that's fun. And I don't know if it'll always be my favorite, but the whole day was just a good day because it was mixed with my favorite creatively, but I also brought a friend along. So when I say I did it all by myself, like I technically filmed it all by myself, but because the friend that I brought along doesn't know filmmaking at all. But it was super helpful to have her there
Yeah.
to be my assistant and help me grab some things. And it was just cool because I had like all of my worlds combining in one. Like my friend was there helping me, and she was getting to see into the whole different side of me that a lot of people don't get to see, like my work self. Um, and she was, we had like some of the best conversations during that day because it was a 2 hour drive there and a 2 hour drive back. So and this was a full day project. I woke up at 3 a.m. and I got home at 11 p.m. So it was this project encapsulated my entire day. But we had a lot of conversations about, she's like, I thought you'd be more confident when you were filming, and I thought that you would be like, oh, this is easy peasy, we're getting it all done, and like you just go go go. But she saw me go, like I would film some shots and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I hope I got everything I needed. I think I have everything I need, but I'm still, and she would see me go through these like struggles of a creative while filming, and she's like, wow, I just kind of expected it to be a lot easier for you, I put quotes, and I'm like, no, like the creative process, it isn't like I'm just like people can see so much on social media, or they can imagine what you're doing, and it's like we're still human. Like we have all of the struggles in between, and nobody's just crushing it all the time, right? And so
Yeah.
I think that project was cool because it really challenged me. I had so much that I needed to execute. There were so many things that went wrong on the day, like so much weather that we couldn't control that were out of our control, and so many things that I had to navigate as the director, as literally wearing every single one of the hats for this project. I had to navigate so many different problems and still film and still be focused. And I felt like I was scatterbrained the whole time. And yet the end product is like, I've had people that come up to me and they're just like, I can't stop thinking about that commercial. And it's just so interesting because I'm like, it's so cool that the end product ended up as it did. And it was work that I was actually really proud of. And so, and 5 years down the road, I'm sure I'm going to look at it and be like, I thought that was good. You know, that's how it always goes. But as of now, where I'm at, the work that I was able to produce as one person, like, I really do think it could be a commercial you see on TV. And it's crazy. Like, it's just cool to see what you can do with a million limitations, right? So, I don't know. That's kind of pieces as to why there's so much more.
Yeah. That's a very good story. First of all, I'm going to link the commercial in the show notes. And for those of you who are watching on Spotify right now or on YouTube, you should see a little bit, because there's like an area here on the left lower side, I think. Should pop up there. You should see maybe a little clip of the commercial that I'll put there. But I love what you said about not really knowing, like when you're there, when you're in the weeds, like it's like you're a scatterbrain. I love that because it's so it's so true when they think that you're a graphic designer, you're a photographer, you know exactly what to do. It's like, I'm not a magician. Like, I'm still there. I'm there to assess the same situation that you guys are in, but hopefully with my set of skills and techniques, I might be able to make something out of it. Like, that's better than what you guys can. That's all it is. It doesn't mean that I can just snap my fingers and be like all confident that I'm like, oh yeah, but this is so easy. It's so funny because I think a lot of people do think of you know what, actually maybe it's not even a lot of people that think that. Maybe it's just us. What do you think about that? Like, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it's all in my head who that I put this such high expectation of myself that I'm like, when I walk in this space, I need to be confident and I need to say the right things and make sure that everyone knows that I know exactly what I'm doing. But the truth is, 100% truth is, I'm just reassessing everything, making sure that, okay, well, you know, like, will this work? Did I get everything? I remember I went on a shoot before, a product shoot, and they're like, so did you get everything? I'm like, I think so. that's my response, because my response, because it's like, there's really no way for me to know until I start editing. But I think I got everything. It's so interesting, though, that you said that, because it's so true. Very, very true. Like, we're not really sure of what we're doing. We're just, yeah.
Yeah, you're speaking to the queen of questioning myself. And yeah, I think that is literally true of all creatives. And you know, it's kind of funny. It's like, it's the trend to talk about imposter syndrome right now. But I think there's things that go so much deeper than that. Like, I don't think I struggle so much with imposter syndrome. Like, I think that, and I think the reason I don't is because I think that I have this viewpoint that everybody in the world brings value, you know, and their story, their individual story, whether it looks good or not, brings value to the world. And so in that sense, the imposter syndrome isn't as much of a struggle, but I have just like struggle after struggle after struggle of these things that I think about and deal with all the time. And, you know, some of the trenches as to why I haven't been doing posting as much on YouTube, when last time, like I said, I told you I want to drop some of the freelance work and pursue YouTube, is because I've asked myself millions of questions. And I've asked myself questions like that don't even make sense, that aren't even true of myself. And I think some of them are great questions to answer, to test my character and to make sure that I'm, you know, in the right space. But so many things, like, we get in our own way the majority of the time. And like like my friend, who her eyes were kind of open to, oh, this isn't like smooth sailing for you every single time. Like, most people don't, like, when they see that, they're encouraged. And if they don't see that, they just have no idea. They just think that you're doing good anyway. You know what I mean? So it's like, there's not really a negative to it. It's either encouraging because it's relatable to someone, or they just have no idea that you're even struggling with any of the things that you are, and they see just how well you're doing, right?
Yes. So. I think one of the reasons, this is my personal view, I think one of the reasons why you probably don't struggle with imposter syndrome because you're willing to show your vulnerability. I think you're willing to admit that you're human, and that makes you so approachable. People love that. Like okay, well,
Mhm.
what's the problem? We need a commercial. I don't know how to operate a camera. I don't know how to direct a film or something. And you're like, okay, I think I know a little bit of that. Like that's the vibe that I'm getting. You know what I mean? You're not painting yourself as like, oh, that's easy, because it's so different. It's so
Mhm.
different coming from that angle versus just like, okay, here's the problem. How about we tackle it both together? It's That's how I see you and your personality, and I think it's just it's just more likable in general. And maybe that's why you're not afraid. You don't have this imposter syndrome where it's like you know you're not an expert. I guess this is what I'm saying. You don't claim to be an expert.
Mhm.
You just know you have the experience. You know that you've gone through this a couple of times already to know what works best in certain situations. Doesn't mean you know exactly what to do, but you kind of know how to navigate yourself. And someone said, what experience really is basically just you doing something over and over again, and you've done it more than someone else. And that's why you're the expert. You're the experienced one. Doesn't mean that you have 100% correct answers all the time. So I think that's
Mhm.
my point of view, like why I think you don't struggle with it. And I think it's great. It's so great because it one of the reasons I feel like I struggle with imposter syndrome every now and then is because it's an ego check. It's like okay, I need to paint myself as someone that I'm not, and like what if people think that I'm so good but I'm actually not? You know what I mean? It's like that image in my head that I feel like I need to maintain. And so I've slowly let go of that over the years. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just me. When someone asks me like,
Mhm.
how do you do this? I'm like, well, I've done this before. I've done this before, and I just realized that this is the best way of doing it. And people like that. I noticed that people do like that. It's much more approachable. It puts a
Mhm.
face, behind an actual person behind the name, the designer, the design, the photograph, the film, the video, whatever it is. It puts a human behind it. And I think maybe you and I just both agree in that style of creativity in a weird way. I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know how to explain it, but that's kind of like what like I guess that's just how I feel about how I approach things, because I get a lot of requests for um, not even just requests, just like actual job offers of asking me to take photos of this and that. And I'm like, why me? There's so many other out there who are so much more experienced. And here's actually one funny thing that you probably would get a kick out of. People ask me what kind of equipment that I use with certain photos, and I'm like, my window. Like I don't have. They're like, you don't have fancy lights. I'm like, I have one, but I don't really have all
Mhm.
these other fancy stuff because that's not my style. And for some reason, people think that if you're a professional photographer, or someone who actually gets paid to do that, you need a bunch of equipment. I'm like, not really. I mean, you just have to find your thing, and yeah, you
Mhm.
I guess you run with it, right? So I don't know. That's just a
Yeah.
little funny thing that.
I think that comparison, like, obviously is a huge problem, and we talk about it all the time. We hear about comparison and how social media breeds that. But comparison is really confusing to me too, because like if we're all individual humans, like with all some sort of unique gift that we all carry, then like and that's special, and only you can bring that. I just, it's just like, it seems like comparison shouldn't even exist. Because all that we're using, like what you're saying with even just using a window, not having these fancy tools is, this might not fully come to a point, but like it's you that makes the difference. It's not the tools. We could all have the same tools and we'll all use them differently. So in a way that also throws out the comparison, because like I just like so desperately want us all to stop it with the comparison, because
Mm-hmm.
we if we created ourselves, okay, like this is super weird, but if we created a little world with other humans and we made them each unique with whatever gift that they had, and we're really excited about each one of our creations of those humans, this is super weird, but I think that we'd be super excited to see them doing exactly what we created them to do, right? And that's just kind of, instead of like all of them trying to look like everybody else, it'd be so much more satisfying to be like, oh my gosh, they're all doing like this perfect puzzle piece I put together. And so it's just, I kind of view like that's who we like, our identity is not found in all the stuff that we made look like somebody else. It's like it's who we are and what we create out of who we are. Anyway, yeah, it's just
You think
it's
you
so
said what you said was
interesting.
weird, Jordyn? I don't think it's weird at all. It totally makes sense to me. No, seriously, because it's like
Awesome.
yeah, yeah, no, because if you think about it, like when we create something, do we set
Mm-hmm.
out to create something so that it looks exactly like someone else's work? No,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's not that. We're trying to put something in our work, in our project, that makes it us, uniquely us, no matter how small
Mm-hmm.
it is. That's why, and this goes back to our original, like the part, like your story earlier. You said no to that boring project because probably to you that anyone can do this. Like it doesn't speak. It's not me. When I see it, I probably wouldn't even recognize it because it could have been just like a copy of someone else's work. You know what I mean? That's probably, yeah. No, no, I totally get it. Like what you were saying,
Mm-hmm.
it's very true, and I like what you said. Like we should stop the comparison because who said it? Like the best thing that you could really do is just be yourself. I mean, because that in itself is makes you unique, and when you're
Mm-hmm.
unique, that's what people look for. That's what they want. Oh, here, like yeah, in social media, for example, and I hate this too. Like I hate the whole okay, how do I succeed on Instagram, for example? I need to follow this person's aesthetic, the colors, their style of writing or taking their photos. I'm like, it's good to take inspiration from people. It's good to be inspired by them. But by no means should you try to look exactly like them because the moment you do, then you disappear because now you don't
Mm-hmm.
have an identity because you're assuming someone else's identity. And guess what? Because that person you're probably admiring, that person probably is just being themselves. And which basically means is that they will always be a step ahead of you because they're just being themselves. And you're trying to chase after that instead of you
Mm-hmm.
just trying to chase after the best version of yourself, right? I don't know how we
Mm-hmm.
got into this topic, but this is great. I love this.
Yeah. I mean, and just recognizing that like the problem starts at the root if you don't believe that like yourself brings value, and
Yeah.
who you were created to be. If you don't believe that to be a good thing, then it's going to be very difficult to not be comparison
Mm.
to go into
Mm-hmm.
comparison.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can like kind of view yourself, that's why if you take yourself out of yourself and view yourself as if like as a created thing, as we create, like if you're all of your photos on your Instagram feed sat next to each other and tried to be the photo next to it, it doesn't even make any sense. It just
No.
doesn't
Yeah.
like logically make any sense for it to want to be something else when it's beautiful in itself. So
Mm-hmm.
um
Mm-hmm.
when you can view it as that same concept, then it's easier to be like, oh yeah, it doesn't make sense to try to be something else, like myself, that
Right.
like I have, yeah, yeah. So,
No, no, no. Yeah. Go ahead. I just wanted to ask you. Um, this probably comes up a couple of times in conversations with other people who are not in the trade in your career. Um,
Mhm.
like how do I know what I'm good at? Like how do I know how do I figure out my style? How do I figure out what I'm maybe I'm just talking to myself here, Jordyn, because it's like these are the questions that I've been asking myself ever since I was a kid. It's like how do I know what I'm good at? Like what is it that I can offer that people will love and admire? And it
Mhm.
took me like 30 plus years to realize that all I had to do was just be me. because that
Mhm.
alone is, I'm offering them something different, because no one is exactly like me. I don't know if you know this, Jordan, but I'm a twin, and even my twin is
Oh yeah.
not like me. Yeah, yeah. So we're very different. So it's like the
Yeah.
most unique thing that you can offer is yourself, like who you are, the things
Mhm.
that you like, your style. Don't be ashamed. We're
Yeah.
so fixated on, look or going after what other people are doing, that we
Yeah.
neglect like what we can actually offer.
And I think it's okay too to like give a little bit of an answer to your question, is to ask those who really know you and really love you. I think it's okay to ask them what good they see in you. If you like, it's okay to ask, because not just out of an effort to seek validation, but sometimes that's what community is for. Like, you need to be reminded of things that you can't see yourself, and we seem to save it for, as sad as it is, the funeral where we say all the good things. So it's kind of a challenge to, like, as me as a friend to my friends or my family, to actually say the things that I think about them. But then if you don't ever feel like you're in a space where you can see what you're good at, or what you offer, then it doesn't hurt to ask. Like, I know that sounds like a really weird thing, but with trusted friends, it's like, hey, I'm having a hard time seeing something good in me. Can you remind me what you see? And just having that community around you to give you that. I think,
Oh, that's
yeah.
yeah, that's
I
actually
think,
really good. To be honest, like, I mean, it goes back to your whole thing, like, make yourself available, and you kept it simple. Hey, I am a
mhm.
videographer. I'm a filmmaker. I have work here. Just check it out. And actually, I don't know why I never thought about that. Just ask people. No, seriously, like,
Yeah.
dude, just ask people. Maybe for me, it's
Yeah.
just obviously I wasn't so used to being so vulnerable. You know what I mean? Like, in that,
Mm.
again, going back to the ego thing, right? It's like, why would I ask them? Because that's like admitting that I don't know anything, right? That's why I have
Mhm.
imposter syndrome, because I'm always trying to pretend that I know something. But the moment you let go of that, it's just like, this is awesome. Like, people like me for being me. Yeah, yeah. That's good. That's actually
Absolutely.
really good advice. That's very good advice. So, Jordan, what's the I guess what's the next step for you then? Are you trying to go back to your original plan of making more content on YouTube, or do you think you'll still pursue this freelance thing? Because it looks like you're having a lot of fun doing this.
Mhm. So I'm gonna throw out all of the things that I'm working on, and this is everything that I would love to actually accomplish. Okay, and I might come back and be like, oh man, who knows what happened to that, but this is my hope, is um I'm still gonna pursue some freelance work, sure, when it comes, but I think I'm gonna be a lot more uh good about saying no to the ones that I want to say no to, and yes to the ones that I want to really value my time. I'm going to focus more on creating content for YouTube. That stuff is hard for me because scheduling my creativity doesn't work. uh, but
Yeah.
I will try to pursue that a lot more. Um, I am actually working on building even an online course. I already have all of the concepts written out. It's just figuring out the time and the structure to get it done. And so that's where I'm at with that. I've already started online mentorship, that meaning one-on-one with people. I don't know what that will transform into, but I've been loving that. That's been such a gift to me because I sit by myself all the time and edit. And so it's so nice to have some variation in my day and have those conversations. So that's been cool. Um, and honestly, I would love to create a podcast too. That's always been my dream. This is why I love them. So I'm very thankful to get to be on here with you. And thank you for the first time I was on too. I was so excited because I really, really love podcasts. Uh, so I have that plus a lot more on my mind, but if I were to say more, it's just going to get too extreme. Those are all of
Yeah.
the things that I'm wanting to pursue after and that I have in the works. Like, I actually have a lot of things planned. I've stopped saying on social media, like, you're going to expect this from me soon, because it always gets delayed. But I've been working for a long time and trying hard at these things. So I already have a YouTube video done. It's not published. I'm working on another one right now. So I'm trying to build a bank for myself to be able to be more consistent. So that's where I'm at. That's kind of the update.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. It looks like it's going to be a very busy couple of, maybe just even the rest of the year for you. But it's going to be a really fun and
absolutely.
interesting one. So I want to say, Jordyn, that I think you're a gift to the creative community because lending your voice, your experience, and your honesty, your sincerity, just you being you, is something that everyone needs to hear. I mean, you're okay with the fact that you've said all these things in the past and never really, none of them came to fruition. Like in some form or another, and it's okay. It's okay to be like that. But one of the things that I love about what you just said right now is you're not afraid to throw out things that you want to pursue. I mean, throw it out there for people to know, understand. You want to start a
Mm-hmm.
podcast. You wouldn't be you this is goes back again to you just making yourself available, making yourself making everyone know your plans and where you want to take yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so important in business, in life, in relationships, because when there's less surprises for people, it makes you it's just people can just approach you and be like, okay, so suddenly you'll find people actually support you. Suddenly you'll find
Mm-hmm.
people that they actually rally, you know, behind you. You know what I mean? Like they're right behind you, and I love that. And I think that sort of honesty, optimism, you can call that optimism, but it's to me it's just like I don't know. I can't find the right words, Jordyn, because I don't think a word really fits like what I'm trying to describe. But it's a good thing. It's a good thing that you're expressing that. It's a good thing that you're putting it out there, and it's a good thing. I feel like that people hear this, and that's great. So I appreciate that, Jordyn. Here's one thing I do want to ask you though. I do want to ask that if it's okay for you, like even after you make all of that, I want to ask 1 hour of your time in the next couple months or whatever to come back to the podcast and give us an update. I'd love hearing back from you. I'd love to see how your career progresses, how you just grow into this thing that I can't describe, but it's like I'm just so excited to see where you land in the next few years. That would be so great if you could do that for me.
I would absolutely love to do that.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
Jordyn, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. The doors are always open. You actually we don't even have to wait a couple of months. Whenever you want to come back, just let me know. But before I end this
Okay.
podcast, can you share with the audience how they can find you or they can get in touch with you?
Yes. So everything is pretty much under my name. Thankfully, I have a unique name that is spelled uniquely. So um, I'm sure you will post that. But Jordyn Dunseath on Instagram, Jordyn Dunseath on YouTube, JordynDunseath.com. Even my email is very much like that. Yeah, I will give you all of the links, but everything is Jordyn Dunseath. I am mostly on Instagram, YouTube, and website, and then I'll be building. On my website, on all my social profiles, you'll see the things that I'm building and how to get involved with like the mentorship and that kind of stuff. I'll say one last thing. Currently, my mentorship is hosted at learn.jordandunseath.com. So that's another
Okay.
place to come
That's still
find me
pretty
if you
easy
want
to
to actually
remember.
personally interact. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Well, thank you, Jordyn.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time. I'm so sorry for being late, but I appreciate you being such a kind person in general that it's like I just feel guilty to this day. I know you said it's already okay, but I'm like I still feel so bad because you waited for me. So,
Totally fine.
thank you. Thank you so much. And I hope you have I just wish you the best of everything, and I look forward to hearing back from you again, hopefully very, very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you again for all of your kind words to me. And I really, really love doing this. So it's so good to catch up with you.
Looking forward to the podcast, Jordyn. Looking forward to it. I better hear about it soon.
I know.